Imagine waking up one day, but not in your own body. You open your eyes and everything else feels different, taller, stronger, alien. Your memories, your personality, your emotions, all still yours, but your body, completely new. That's the experience of Jake Sully in Avatar, a man whose consciousness is linked to a genetically engineered Na'vi body. It's one of the most striking depictions of consciousness transfer in modern sci-fi. But what if that wasn't fiction? What if science allowed us to move a human mind from one body to another, or even into a machine? Today we're diving deep into the real science of consciousness transfer, in Avatar, in Alien Earth, in The Matrix, Altered Carbon, and even Ghost in the Shell. In Avatar, humans control their avatars through a neural bridge, a system linking the brain of a human to the nervous system of a hybrid Na'vi body. Jake Sully's consciousness doesn't just pilot a machine, it merges with another living organism. The interface is bidirectional. Every motor command from Jake is translated into Na'vi muscle activity, while sensory signals, sight, sound, vestibular, bounce, touch, all flow back into his human brain in real time. James Cameron imagined this as an advanced form of brain-to-brain interface, where every sensory input is transmitted directly between two biological systems. The result feels like teleporting the mind. Presence, embodiment, and agency in a body that isn't biologically yours. Alien Earth, the first TV series in the Alien franchise, is also set on Earth and explores synthetic beings, human-machine hybrids, and the hazards of biotech in a world that looks uncomfortably like our own. It's not a mind link like Avatar, but it interrogates the same boundary. How much of you survives when biology is redesigned or replaced? These stories share a single haunting idea, that the self might be transferable. But where does you actually live? In your body? Or in the pattern of information inside your brain? Neuroscientists can describe almost everything about the brain structure, yet they still struggle with what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness, how electrical and chemical activity give rise to the experience of being you. We can measure neurons firing when you see blue, or when you feel fear, but no one can explain how those patterns become subjective awareness. That mystery makes transferring consciousness not just a technical challenge, but a philosophical one as well. If we could somehow replicate every neuron state, would the copy that wakes up truly be you, or just a perfect imitation? Would continuity of consciousness require an unbroken stream from moment to moment, or is pattern identity enough? Even if a full transfer is a long way off, early steps are already here. Research teams have built brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs, that decode neural activity in real time. Paralyzed patients can move robotic arms, control cursors, or type by thought. Some experiments can even reconstruct words or images directly from brain activity, and stimulation of sensory cortex can produce the feeling of touch in prosthetic hands. It's not uploading the mind, but it's the same language. The brain sends signals, machines read them. Each new advance tightens that bridge between biology and technology. If you can control a robot with your mind today, could you one day be that robot? To truly move consciousness, we'd need to capture everything inside a human brain. Every neuron, every synapse, every changing chemical gradient. That's called whole brain emulation. The human brain has about 86 billion neurons and roughly 100 trillion synapses. Simulating all of that in real time would require computing power far beyond anything that exists today. Even the world's fastest supercomputers can barely simulate a tiny fraction of that complexity when you include realistic biophysics. Scientists mapping connectomes are producing exquisite wiring diagrams of small brains and slices of cortex. Cryogenic preservation and nanoscopic imaging are being explored to preserve and analyze neural structures. If one day we could record not just the wiring, but the state of every neuron, ion channel dynamics, synaptic strengths, glial modulation, in theory we could recreate a mind. Whether that recreated mind is conscious or just a digital puppet remains the real question. So, could we ever perform a true avatar-style transfer? Theoretically, yes, if we could read the full neural pattern of one brain and somehow write it onto another. Imagine a biological blank, grown in a lab, waiting for a mind. Nanobots could map every neuron in your brain, transmitting that data to the host body where identical connections are stimulated into existence. Alternatively, advanced optogenetics could train a host brain to mirror your synaptic weights, while neurochemical conditioning aligns hormonal baselines and homeostatic set points. It sounds absurd, but some early animal experiments hint at pieces of the puzzle. In sea slugs, transferring RNA from a trained animal to an untrained one produced similar defensive reflexes. Primitive evidence that some memory traces might be chemically portable. Rodent studies have also shown that stimulating specific cell assemblies can evoke learned fear, or even abolish it, indicating that memory has a manipulatable physical substrate. To make it work in humans, we need a perfect understanding of the brain, nanoscopic precision, and a way to keep the person alive through the process. Plus, solutions for immune capability, neuroendocrine alignment, and the risk of rejection, not just by tissue, but by identity. So, not yet, but the door isn't closed. The Matrix takes a different route. Instead of moving minds into new bodies, it plugs them into a simulated world where Neo wakes up inside the Matrix. His brain is fed into a continuous stream of electrical signals identical to what he'd receive in reality. The result is a total sensory illusion. This isn't so far-fetched. Stimulation of the visual cortex can create phosphenes and rudimentary shapes without using the eyes. Somatosensory implants can evoke touch. Cochlear and retinal prostheses already replace sensory organs by feeding the brain encoded signals. If we extend that to multi-sensory high-bandwidth stimulation, you get full immersion VR, an engineered reality that feels indistinguishable from the physical one. If you couldn't tell the difference between a virtual body and a real one, doesn't matter which you inhabit. And if your body ages and dies while your mind remains active in the simulation, is that a form of immortality or a gilded cage? In Altered Carbon, your identity is stored in a stack which can be inserted into any body or sleeve. The show turns consciousness into data, making immortality a matter of backups. Bodies become replaceable hardware, minds become software. This raises terrifying questions. If your mind can be copied, are you still unique? If two versions of you exist, which one is the real person? Philosophers call this the continuity problem. Consciousness might not be a thing that moves, but a process that continues. A perfect copy of you might think it's you, remember your life, even love your family. But if the original still exists, who gets to claim your identity? In Ghost in the Shell, the sci-fi asks another question. What happens when almost nothing biological remains? Major Motoko's body is fully synthetic, yet she retains her ghost, the human essence of self. She embodies the ultimate human-machine hybrid. In the real world, advances in prosthetics, neural implants, and cybernetics are edging in this direction. Artificial limbs can now transmit touch sensations back to the brain. Retinal implants let the blind perceive shapes. Brain chips restore movement after spinal injury. Closed-loop systems that both read and write neural signals are teaching us how to talk back to the brain, not just eavesdrop. Bit by bit, we're replacing the body's parts with engineered substitutes. Someday the only organic component left might be the brain. And when even that can be emulated, what remains of the human? In Alien Earth, the TV show shifts the focus from spaceships to our own planet. Set before the events of the 1979 original film, the series explores corporate biotech, synthetics, and human-machine hybrids, asking how far we'd push biology when the alien nightmare arrives on our doorstep. Characters like Wendy, a hybrid entangled with experimental tech, force us to ask whether identity is preserved when consciousness and biology are engineered for survival. It's not the same as transferring a mind, but it drills into the same core anxiety as Avatar. If you change the body enough, replace parts, rewrite genes, integrate processes, does the person remain the same? Or do we create something new that only thinks it's the same? Let's say it works. We can copy a human mind perfectly, or imprint it into a host. Who owns it? Can it vote, marry, hold a job? What if someone hacks it? The ethics of a digital personhood. If a copy of you exists, deleting it might one day count as murder. Conversely, if you upload yourself and your biological body dies, are you immortal or just gone? What legal and moral status should an embodied copy have compared to the emulated one running in a server rack? Religious and cultural perspectives differ wildly. Some see it as humanity's next step, others as the ultimate form of hubris. Consciousness transfer doesn't just challenge science, it challenges the definition of life and death, and the foundations of identity, consent, and responsibility. So, what real science is actually happening today? Well, neural prosthetics. People can control robotic limbs, wheelchairs, and cursors purely through brain activity. There's sensory neurotech. Cochlear implants, bionic eyes, and cortical stimulators can restore fragments of lost senses. Memory modulation, stimulating specific neuron ensembles, can trigger or suppress learned responses in animals. Then there's connectomics. Ever larger brain circuits are being mapped at the synapse-level resolution. Digital twins, AI models of organs and endocrine systems that test drug responses in silico. And then there's brain preservation. There are organisations out there that are exploring new ways to preserve neural structure for future scanning. Individually, these seem small. Together, they're the early bricks of a bridge between biology and computation, and between flesh and alternative embodiments. Each story spotlights a facet of the same dream, transcending the limits of flesh without losing the self. Avatar asks, what if you could live as someone else in another world? Alien Earth asks, what happens when the biotech boundary breaks on our own planet? The Matrix asks, what if reality itself were programmable? Altered Carbon asks, what if death were optional, and identity became a file format? Ghost in the Shell asks, what's left of us when everything is replaceable? Together, they trace a path from imagination to engineering. Every time science fiction proposes an impossible idea, scientists and engineers quietly start working on it. We can't yet transfer consciousness, but we're learning how to read thoughts, stimulate senses, and connect brains to machines. So maybe one day, stepping into another body, or uploading your mind into a digital world, won't feel like science fiction at all. Maybe it'll feel just like logging in. So, what do you think? If it became possible to transfer your consciousness, would you do it? Would you choose another body, or live forever as data? Drop your take in the comments and let me know. And if you love exploring where science fiction meets real science, subscribe for more.